There are some sequels that shouldn't have been made, and this is easily one of them, as this is probably one of the worst movies I have seen this year at the time of recording this video, and I'm not even exaggerating. This movie was very difficult to get through, and it was only 90 minutes. Let's get to the review. Welcome back, film fans. It is Brad from Let's Be Real Brad, and today in the channel, I'm going to be talking about My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, as it is the third installment in the My Big Fat Greek Wedding franchise, and I have to say that I was not the biggest fan of this series up to this point, as I did enjoy that first movie, as it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and it was a massive box office hit. It's one of the most successful independent movies of all time. It brought so many people together and family and love, and it's just a sweet, caring, and lovable movie that you can just get behind. But when the sequel came out in 2016 that I actually watched for the first time this week, it was such a disappointment. But then I saw the third movie. It made the second movie feel like a masterpiece, because this movie was just god awful. Everything about this movie just screams cash grab. Let's just dive right into the review itself, and I do have to start with the screenplay. Nia Vardalos, who has written every single movie in this series, has had a massive influence on these characters, and I think she did a really great job with that first movie. I mean, she was nominated for the screenplay at the Oscars, but in these last two movies, she has done such a terrible job in the writing department, and I don't know if it's because that she directed number 2 and number 3 and not the first one. I don't know what it is, but with this one in particular, the screenplay is so bad. There is nothing that makes sense in this movie. You feel like there are so many scenes that are cut out, as this movie has such a weird pace to it. It feels so choppy, especially with its horrendous editing and terrible shot composition. This was such a really boring and massive disappointment of a film. I found that the dialogue in this movie was so bad, especially when there are so many scenes that reminded me of a movie like The Room, and it's just really embarrassing that this movie was actually released in theaters. Like, you would think this would be like some random movie you find on iTunes, or you find it in the Walmart bin, something like that, because this movie doesn't actually feel like a movie. It just feels like all over the place. Like, there are just like random scenes of comedy that like don't come back later in the movie. They're just like there as a skit, and then there's just another scene, and that's it. Like, it's really weird, with the second film just being a nostalgia bait of just being like, hey, you remember this? Oh, you remember this joke? And that's just the whole movie. This movie doesn't really do that. And speaking of one of the worst aspects about this movie, the humor. That is one of the best aspects about the first movie. It's just so genuinely funny. This movie is just not funny. I mean, there are some of the worst jokes I have seen all year. I mean, it was just embarrassing. The performances in this movie are just straight up horrible. Like, every actor in this movie you have seen from the other movies, and they just feel so drastically different. They're just so bad. Especially the main kid in the movie, Aristotle. I'm not going to get too much into, the actor himself, because I feel like it's going to be a really bad way of saying that he was just so awful. I mean, this is one of the worst performances I have ever seen in a long time. I was laughing at him the whole time, and he's supposed to be like a serious character. Like, what he's doing is supposed to be trying, and it's not there. With everyone being so bad, I feel like that's got to fall on Nia Vardalos, who is the director of the film. think she did a terrible job here. And it doesn't feel like anyone's like actually trying. The shot composition is so bad. It is just like they just set a camera there and then characters just like stood in front of it and like talked. I also thought this movie dragged, as it was so boring, as nothing happened in this movie. There's just joke after joke that completely falls flat, and no one in my theater laughed. Like maybe one or two chuckles, if I'm being honest. But like other than that, like it was dead silent in there, especially because this movie doesn't have a lot of a score. Like there are a lot of moments in this movie where like it's supposed to be kind of like awkward, and it became really awkward because that was like the joke, because it was awkward and weird. But then no one laughed in the theater, so it made it a lot more awkward. And like I didn't even want to be in there. So if I were to give any positives for this film, I would say that at least this movie is around 90 minutes, and they didn't try to overload this movie with more boring stuff. It's pretty straight to the point. There's just nothing going on, and at least it has some moments that the fans would enjoy, and it tries to have a emotional angle in here that I won't talk about because it is a spoiler that happens right in the beginning of the movie. It was done in such bad taste that I just didn't even like care at that point, because I figured that people would like it from an emotional angle, but it just really did not work for me. And I guess the other positive is that it's a really easygoing movie. Like you really don't have to use your brain watching it. You kind of just chill back, eat some food, and just watch it, and it just goes by. I mean, it is still boring and uninteresting, but like it's so simple that it actually just made the movie go by faster. Overall, guys, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 is an awful disaster of a film. One of the worst movies I've seen this year. Some of the worst performances I have seen this year so far. Choppy editing, terrible directing, no story, horrible dialogue, and an awful sense of humor. This just does not feel like a movie. It just feels like a disaster. I kind of hope that the production of this movie was a disaster, because I feel like the special features or some kind of documentary would be more interesting in this movie, because I don't know what the hell happened here, because it just like doesn't feel like your typical narratively structured movie. And if you're looking for that, you're not going to get it. And this movie also has a few sexual assault scenes that are played for comedy, and they're like, haha, it's funny because, you know, we're just being fun and we're not trying to do anything bad. And the movie makes light of it by, you know, a woman touching somebody inappropriate and be like, oh, I didn't know. We're in 2023. That should not be in a movie and people be like, oh, that's funny. No, it wasn't funny. It was weird and creepy, and they played it for jokes, and I just was really uncomfortable with that scene. I am giving My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 a 3 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. As I want to know below in the comment section, have you seen this movie, and are you a fan of this series? Let me know all of your thoughts. Before you guys check out this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like as you always should, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a brand new video.